Good morning, everyone. So I guess we will start. Since there are not so many people, we'll try to tune the presentation to your needs. So actually, we propose that you introduce yourself very briefly in just your company name, maybe, and type of activity or expectations. So, well, let's start with you. If you can speak up, we'll give you the mic, actually.
I have to speak out louder. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mathieu Le Barbet. I work for a small research laboratory, which is called CESAR. I'm an research engineer. It's mainly linked to the safety in automobile, but we also have application to armored vehicles. So you can consider me as a crash test dummy expert for military application, to make it short.
Hello, my name is Tasos Kounodis. I'm from Signal Generics. We are exhibitors here. We are also active. We were active in EDIDP. We have some success in some contracts, so we've been through the procedure and the collaboration with the big companies, because this is one of the main issues of SMEs. And we're interested to hear what is more for SMEs in EDF. Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning. My name is Jean-François Bureau. I'm running a consultant company, which is named Innovation and Organization Conseil. And I'm working for defense and space entities, and we have some good relationship with DEFIS already.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Cristi Pruslavski from the European Commission. So if you have any questions after the presentation, me and Edouard are happy to give you more information.
Hello, bonjour. My name is Christian Beza. I have a small startup. We plan to launch a blockchain satellite. The objective is to secure data for our clients and to monetize them. And the application could be civil and, of course, military. Thank you. The problems the satellite have been hacked, so this is our proposition.
Hi. So my name is Maria Krauchuk, and I do weapons research for an ESG company.
Romania. Okay. All right. So I guess you prefer we continue in English. Yes. Okay. All right. And so my name is Edouard Geoffroy from the Commission, also working with Crastio in the Defense Directorate within the Directorate General Defense Industry and Space, DEFIS. And so we present you the European Defense Fund with a focus on opportunities for SMEs. So the first part of the presentation will be on EDF in general, and the second part will be the focus on support to SMEs. So the EDF, some of you are probably familiar a bit already. What you see on the right hand of the screen is an illustration of the two parts of the EDF, the two windows as we call them, the research window and the development window or capability window. As you know, the European Defense Fund, the EDF, doesn't cover common procurement, for example, which is another debate which might come, but which is not covered yet by the Commission. So it's more research and development. The EDF is about supporting research and development, with several highlights. One is to support collaborative and cross-border research and development projects and that includes disruptive technologies, which you might be interested in, and I will have a slide on that. To contribute to the competitiveness and innovation capacity of the European defense and technological and industrial base. To encourage the participation of SMEs, here we are. To help reduce the fragmentation of the European defense industrial landscape, to build partnerships between actors interested in defense research and development. And so on the supply side, this is more you. On the demand side, it's also to have the member states cooperate. Of course, to help maximizing the outcomes of defense spending, to close the defense technological gaps where we have the most needs, to strengthen other security and defense initiatives, that is beyond the EDF in the Commission. There are effects on other DGs to go in the direction of defense and security. And of course to strengthen Europe's resilience and strategic autonomy. So, the general principles behind the EDF, one by one. The demand in the defense, you all know that, is mainly driven by the member states. So it's more top-down than bottom-up, as in the civilian research and development programs. We need to ensure continuity in the long term. Much of the defense product needs long-term programming. So it's not just one-shot projects. Generally, you have to have a roadmap, a long-term roadmap. So we have structured a long-term vision along what we have called main expected outcomes. It should be inclusive in terms of inclusiveness at the European level, involving all EU countries. And actually, it's not only EU countries, it's also Norway. We in all EU programs, we can have associated countries. For the EDF, one associated country contributes and participates, it's Norway. So you can make consortia, including Norway, and they are considered in exactly the same way as any member state. We have a strong strategy to support innovation. In particular, the regulation of the EDF foresees that we have a significant part of the budget, up to 8% of the budget, which should be dedicated to disruptive technologies. And we have dedicated calls for those type of technologies. And more generally, we have various instruments or schemes to support innovation. We have gathered all that into a single overview, which we call the EU Defense Innovation Scheme. We need, of course, to be selective because we have a significant budget, 1 billion euro per year on average, it's even 8 billion euro over 7 years. So the average is a bit more than 1 billion euro per year. But still, it's not infinite. At the European level, 1 billion is a good budget, but we still need to be selective. So we need to focus on some topics which are strategic for Europe and provide a clear economic benefit. That can be a game changer for the armed forces. And that would not materialize if not undertaken jointly. Of course, we have to bring the EU added value. If it can be done at the national level, then we don't have to use the EDF. And that's obvious, but important to say on an ethical point of view. We have ethical guidelines, and obviously the regulation reminds that international laws must be followed, and some types of armaments which are prohibited, of course, cannot go into the EDF. There is, of course, a need for synergies, complementarity, and consistency with other stakeholders. So of course, the baseline is that we focus on the priorities commonly agreed by member states, so that should be complementary with what the other member states do, what the member states do. Complementary with other EU initiatives like the civilian programs or the security programs. It should be complementary with NATO and any other EU program. Sorry. So the motto is we need to add EU added value at the EU level. So the EDF is intended to be an enabler in a relatively large ecosystem. You have the CDP and the CARD. You probably know those acronyms for some of you, but maybe not all. So the CDP is the Capability Development Plan, coordinated by the European Defense Agency, EDA. The CARD, which is the Coordinated Annual Review on Defense, also coordinated by EDA. The same goes for PESCO, the Permanent Structured Cooperation, which leads to projects which are identified but not funded, and so the EDF includes a bonus to incentivize projects to implement PESCO projects, which are kind of roadmaps. And of course, there are other EU programs in the landscape, and all this must be consistent with the national planning at the member state level, including Norway, next to all other EU member states. So the EDF way of working follows a life cycle, an annual life cycle. So we have annual work programs and annual call for proposals, and we have an indicative multi-annual perspective which gives a longer-term vision, and the member states have the right somehow invited every year to validate the work programs. And not only the work programs, they also approve the selection of projects, the awards decisions. So we start, when we publish a call, we actually start the year before by preparing the work program and publishing the calls. Then you prepare your proposals, you submit them, and then those proposals are evaluated, selected. The award decision are approved by the member states, adopted by the Commission, and published. Then the grants themselves are prepared, and then the project actually starts. You have several eligibility conditions. One classical type of eligibility condition at the EU level is to have multinational cooperation, so 3-country minimum, so three eligible entities from 3 different countries, member states or Norway. The only exception is for the disruptive calls, where it can be only 2. The beneficiaries must be established in the EU or in Norway, so in the country eligible for the fund. They must also be not subject to control from or by third countries or third country entities. There should be not even restriction or control on the technologies which are developed. So somehow the EDF is an instrument for autonomy. So what you propose should be controlled, established in the EU and controlled by the EU. So of course, once again, it should be compliant with international law and high ethics standards. And you remember we have 2 windows, research and development. And so development, which is closer to products and closer to the short-term member state needs. have additional eligibility criteria. There should be co-financing. When it's the design phase, the capability requirements should be harmonized and jointly agreed by at least 2 member states or Norway. And there should be a letter of intent showing the intention to procure or use the system with and have common technical specifications. The funding rates also differ depending on whether you are on the research side or on the development side. So for the research action, it's very easy. There is a single funding rate, which is 100% of the eligible cost. That doesn't mean 100% of the total costs, because there is the horizontal, I forgot the name, but in addition to the eligible costs, which are the salaries, the material you buy, you of course have horizontal costs, overheads. Yeah, now the word come back. You have overheads, and those are by default capped to 25%. Except if you can manage to have real costs, but this follows a specific process. And for the development actions, it's different. You have a mechanism where you have a baseline value plus a bonus. In the research action, there is no need for a bonus because the baseline is 100%. And for the development action, the baseline is lower than 100%. It depends on the type of activity in the project. So studies are funded at a relatively high level of 90% anyway, before the bonus, and can be up to 100% with the bonus. But prototyping, for example, has a baseline of 20%, and even with the bonus, it cannot go higher than 55%. The bonus, which add percentage to the baseline, depends on several factors. It depends on whether your project is related to a PESCO project, as we mentioned before. It depends on whether you involve mid-caps and SMEs, with some calculation which is displayed here and that you can find easily on any call document. To cover all various defense domains and get organized, so we often organize our documents along those categories, those thematic categories. We also often organize. Oops, there is a problem with the screen apparently. Sorry? Broken cable. Okay, so you have seen the list of categories, so now you know them by heart anyway. So there are about 16 categories, and so they cover the various domains of defense. So it's a broad coverage anyway. Basically, any defense domain is covered. And vous pensez que ça va revenir bientôt ou ça devrait? Et donc ça marche pas. Et on ne sait pas pourquoi. Ah. C'est bon? Ça a été bon une seconde, j'ai pas vu. Ah, ça rebouge. Voilà. Okay, so we are back. So this list of categories you can find easily on our website. By the way, the presentation, the slides will be made available, of course. And so that doesn't mean that we cover all categories everywhere, every year, but generally we cover most of them. So this is a summary. So of course, for you it might be a bit small and far, but once again, this is just a summary of the work program. You have all those figures in the work program. You have the slides which will be made available. This slide is already available in other presentations. So that's the list of topics organized per category, and for each topic, the amount of funding which is budgeted. So it's an indicative budget. That doesn't mean that in the end this budget will be exactly the amount. It's indicative, but it's a very good indication of what we are aiming at. You probably don't see, but at the bottom right, lower right corner of the slide, you have some specific actions. So you have, I will show here. Here you have the call for SMEs. Here you are the call for disruptive technologies. Two of them are thematic and one in non-thematic. So thematic means there is a specific topic to address. Non-thematic means you can submit any topic, any defense topic. And the same goes for the SME calls. It's non-thematic. They are non-thematic. And you also have a few other actions which takes a bit of budget from the overall budget, which are supporting the overall process and which can be of interest for the SMEs. We have national focal points at the national level, which are good contact points to help you understand more, understand better the EDF and the opportunities, and to network. We have coaching, business coaching for the SMEs. I will have a slide on that. And we start this year to have a blending facility for equity funding for SMEs and mid-cap. So this is just the beginning for the last one. I don't have a slide on that, but if you're interested, you can come and see me after the presentation, and I can, or you can ask a question if you want, if you are interested in this specific aspect, which is just starting. So now for the really dedicated support to SMEs. So you have seen just before, we have non-thematic calls which are dedicated to, or at least focused on SMEs. I will have a slide on that. Then you have the SME bonus, and what was not mentioned in the slide was that not only there is a bonus which gives a higher funding rate, but there is an award criteria. There is one award criterion among the criteria to encourage, to give more chances to consortia which include SMEs compared to consortia which don't include SMEs. Well, it's not binary. It's not you include one and you're done. It's the more SMEs you involve, the better. And we have the business coaching. So I will have basically one or two slides for each of those aspects. And actually first, it's not in the non-thematic calls, or sometimes we call them open calls, but non-thematic calls. All calls are open in the sense of openness to anyone who wants to compete. And then we often say open calls to say calls which are open to any topic, which is another meaning for open call. So we have thematic calls on disruptive technologies, but we have one open call on disruptive technologies where we want to address really cutting-edge technologies with a radical vision, which have the potential of being a real game changer. So we are ready to take high risk to get high impact. And you have the identifier of the topic at the bottom. And there is a budget of 10 million euros on this on this call, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Then you have the open call for SMEs, and you have two of them. So one, which is the top part of the table, is for research actions, so lower TRL projects, and the bottom one is higher TRL in the development window. So of course in the development window you have the additional constraints of having to be supported by the member states, whereas in the research window it's more free to submit without a strong or formal support of the member states, even if it's always good to have a support from the member states, but it doesn't have to materialize through a letter of intent and common requirements, etc. The development call is really for SMEs only. The consortium can be made only of SMEs, whereas for the research call, the consortium has to be made mainly of SMEs, but they can also include research organization for up to 40% of the requested budget, and the coordinator should still be an SME. So here the goal is also to allow you to network with research organizations, whereas here is to network only with SMEs to bring your product forward. All those calls welcome proposal for up to 4 million euros per proposal. Then there is the business coaching. So the business coaching is offered to beneficiaries which have been selected in open calls, either SME open calls or disruptive technologies open calls. So for those beneficiaries who are interested, there are business coaches who are paid by a small budget line, which you have seen in the previous slide. So they are paid by the Commission to coach the SMEs who are interested for a period of up to 2 years. So the idea is to help those SMEs to reduce the time to market, basically, and of course boost their growth. So now a more concrete aspect: how do you find partners? You have various ways. You have the Enterprise Europe Network, which has a sub-part dedicated to aspects including defense. You have the European Network of Defense-Related Regions, ENDR.eu. You have the yearly info days that we organize at the Commission, and the next one will come soon on June 30 and July 1st. And you also have info days organized at the national level. You can, of course, participate to exhibits and B2B events like this one. And we have the national focal points, which are also paid by or supported by the Commission, which are at the national level, people who are quite knowledgeable about the process and the landscape and can help you network. So you have some useful links in the slide. Those slides will be distributed on our website, so you can go there and you will just can follow the links. If ever you don't find any answer, you can mail us. And so if you are more interested, of course, we are welcoming your questions. Since you are not so many, we can also, after the end of the plenary session, stay a bit more. We have a booth at the other end of this hall. If you go to GCAT and go all the way along, you'll find us. And you have this info day. You can participate online if you don't if you cannot make yourself available to travel to Brussels, you can just participate online. And if you register, you get access to all other participants, so you can already start networking as soon as you are registered, even before the event and after the event also. So that ends my talk. Thank you for your attention, and I'm welcoming your questions. Yeah. And by the way, maybe just one question by raise of hand. Who was aware of those info days? Okay. All right. So good we advertise. Okay.
Why you don't include business coaching also on the SME programs?
Sorry?
You said that business coaching goes to the projects of disruptive technologies and open course. Why don't you also include SME course? Since you are targeting SMEs.
It's open SME goals. That's the.
So it's including.
Yes.
All right. And how we can proceed in order to get this coaching, if we are in a project already?
Well, you have to be selected first.
Okay. Does this include also EDIDP projects or only EDF?
No, I think no. The answer is no. It's only a EDF.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, I have a question. Who are the members of the jury who select?
Sorry,
you say you have to be selected first. Who are the members of the jury who select? Where is going the information we submit to you?
Okay. So, do you want to answer? Okay. So. We use independent experts, which are selected for that purpose. Of course, they are not known. The commission, so they should register as candidates on the European Commission website. And then the Commission selects them on the basis of their CV, based on, well, of course, their knowledgeable, their knowledge of the domain, their independence, their competencies. I mean, this is classical business. Another, and of course. Well, not of course. And in addition to the external experts, people from the Commission also evaluate certain criteria, depending on the criteria. If you don't have the mic, but
their name and their credentials are available on a website?
Not per project.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
Okay, so we can discuss after the event, after the presentation. Yes.
I've seen that the opening for the course is next day, is June 21st.
Yeah, but
what does it mean exactly? Is it
Yeah.
the starting point, or is it what does it mean?
Yeah, you're right. It's a bit. You're right. It can be perceived as a bit complex. It's not very complex, actually. What is happening on 21st is that you will be able to download all the forms, submission forms, all the details you need, and you can start to submit your proposal, which of course you have time. I mean, the deadline for submission will be 24th of November, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's a long period of time.
Yeah. So, but the reason for this apparent complexity is that the work program and description of the topics, which is what is of most interest for you, because the detail of the submission form comes after. This is approved by the member state and adopted by the Commission a bit earlier. It was adopted end of May, 25 of May, if I remember correctly. So we published that part immediately. But those are just documents. Those are PDF documents. And it's not organized on the funding and tender portal yet. Then there was an intermediate step where we opened the information. We put the information on the funding and tendering portals so that things are organized per call rather than the PDF document that the member states agree, because you have to understand that the mechanics of preparing that, if we do directly per call with all the documents which are repeated for all call, because when you are interested, you want to see one call and all the relevant documents for that call. And of course, many documents are common, like the eligibility rules, etc. All this is common. So if we organize that way, the member state would be lost. But if we organize the other way from the member state, you will be lost. So we have things which are for the common decisions, which were published immediately. Then we have organized on the funding and tender portal. This is done already, except for one very specific call, which is the call for the framework partnership agreement, which is very special. So if you're not interested in this one, you can ignore that detail. And on 21st, you will have the last remaining templates and the facility to already submit something, even though I'm sure you will not submit that day, but it will be technically the opening until 24 November.
Okay. And you mentioned the relationship between the fund and the EDA dimensions, the card and the capability development plan. To which extent are the EDA priorities similar to the European Defense Fund, or are there discrepancies between the two dimensions?
They are, of course, complementary and in synergy. There are no discrepancies, but there are differences. But Krastio will explain better.
What is really important to know is that member states are very involved in defining the priorities. So, of course, the EDA is also part of this process. So all these calls, the different topics, the budget, the timing, all this is consulted and agreed with them. So it is an aligned process. And maybe to finish on your previous question, the really important deadline to remember is the end of November. This is the moment after which you cannot submit a proposal. As Edouard said, you can start submitting proposals already in the next days, but this is an open window until November. All the information about what will be funded, how it is going to be funded, how much money will go there, it's already available. We have a fully electronic submission, so we don't have papers and folders, etc., etc. And the electronic submission system will be opened, so if someone, it will be an exception, if someone already has all the details, all the consortium, they can already submit next week. Realistically, and I can share this, it's not a secret, people tend to always submit things at the last moment. It's not only in our program, it's a very human thing. The one thing you should not do, and I'm always amazed how many companies make this mistake, you should not wait until the last moment, the last day, the last hour. And we keep repeating it, and it always happens. So basically, the important thing for you is November. And November, after this, you're too late. But until then, you can submit every single day during this period.
And maybe related to this exactly, we cannot insist enough on that. Maybe a piece of advice is that, of course, the narrative, what we call the part B, which is really the literal description of your project, that we can understand that you want to improve and adjust until the very end. But advice is all the administrative information, take someone who does that early and then insert a draft of your PDF description, and then at the end you have just one thing to do, is to update that thing. And then you have because what often happens is that when entering the administrative information, you realize, I don't have the address of that person, I don't have the phone number of that person, and 2 days before, and then the person is on holidays, and you're stuck, and it's panic. And all that is so easy to get before. So do that in advance, because I agree, it's not very interesting, but you can have someone do that early on. And what you want to finalize is just the PDF description, and then that's only one thing to update. So, yes?
Yes, you mentioned that to get the fundings, we should build a consortium of minimum 3 SMEs, right? All belonging to European Union. And my question is, could we add a 4th entities which is not belong to European Union, as far as we get the 3s from European Union?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So first, it's 3 minimum, of course. That's I hope it's clear for everyone. If you have 4, 5, 6 SMEs from several countries, of course, that's okay. Now, for entities which are not established in the Union or Norway, those cannot be funded. But you can have associated partners. So if they manage to self-funding, so of course, if it's not critical for your project, then you don't have to formally put them in the consortium. You can just mention in your narrative that you have good cooperation that will be helpful. But if you want to make them in your consortium, the benefit for you comes only if your project would have less value without having a strong commitment from that SME, that is a partner. If this associated partner provides something to the project which is critical to the project, then go for it. But if it's just a nice to have cooperation, go informal. And of course, those SME, those outside partners should not pose any problem, but I guess, of course, if you want to partnership then with them, it should be okay. But you should also be aware that, for example, if you have partners who are based in the EU but control outside the EU, they are normally not eligible for funding, except if you have a guarantee by the member states. So the eligibility rules are a bit complex for those borderline. You should read them carefully.
Okay, thank you. I have another question, if I may. Is it possible to get funding from the EU if we get another funding from France, for instance? The research we would like to pursue could be funding by the Ministry of Army, French Ministry of Army. So if we can get funding from them, can we also submit to get additional funding so that there is co-funding, one from France, one from the European Union?
Yeah, so first, in the development window, co-funding is the norm. It's not the exception.
Okay.
But then it's not...
the research window.
Okay, so that's different. You don't need co-funding. It's not obligatory. When we see co-funding, it's really coordinated co-funding. When we mention co-funding, it's really with close coordination with the member state on that project, and they bring additional funding specifically for that project. Now, if you say you have contracts or support from the French MOD and you want to get money from the EU, there should be no double funding. That is, you should not be funded twice for the same thing. But if it's complementary, then of course it's fine. But you have to ensure the complementarity. If you cheat, then you have the risk of, well, not you, but if someone cheats on that, then it's at the moment of the audit that it's seen, and that's bad, of course.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a possibility of cheating. The way
I mean,
I see it
you see what
is
I
that
mean, yeah.
sometimes you build a research project, but the funders don't have enough money to fund it. And sometimes you need to have several funders. So it may happen that French army is interested, but don't have enough money to fund it, and would like to share and to have the support of the European Union funds. So and so that this is a kind of win-win, because
Yes.
this is less money taken from Europe.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, as soon as there is no double funding, it's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much. Sorry to arrive late in the presentation. One could imagine that actually you have a number of firms, let's say 2 firms, who would like to submit to the EDF funding, and that they would be looking for a third firm coming from another country. So the question is, have you got a clearinghouse mechanism which enables actually a number of firms to go and seek other partners in other European countries?
So
Did
if
I
it's-
make myself clear?
If it's
I'm not quite
public,
sure.
you speak of public funding or private funding?
Private funding.
Private funding. So then we might go to, I mentioned this new scheme that we are just starting, which is to support investors to invest into defense, EU of course, defense SMEs and mid-caps. So we will launch that, and of course that will create a network of EU defense private investors.
I think your question was also about finding partners, so finding the third company. So no, absolutely. So you need, if you have 2, of course, you need at least 1 more. So we don't have a clearinghouse as such, so there is no European Union mechanism that says you can cooperate with these companies, but you cannot cooperate with these companies. This is not the case. However, Edouard, you had a slide about the matchmaking and finding partners. We do have, for example, national focal points in each member state. We do have some regions that are cooperating with each other. For example, maybe you noticed in France, every region like Nouvelle-Aquitaine, Normandy, they do cooperate with each other. So we have different forums to help companies find the third missing company. And we can, I can give you my card, and I can give you more details after the presentation. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. You mentioned audit. When will audit will occur in the life cycle of an action? And how is it organized? Is it different from a European Social Fund or structural investment funds?
So I don't know much about these other funds, but basically the audits are conducted in quite similar manner all across the Commission, if I'm not mistaken, because it's a horizontal DG who is in charge on that. So I guess it's similar.
By the point, for other funds, national states, member states are
if you speak
they have a role.
If you speak of regional funds, then that's different, because then the Union supports the member states to distribute the funds. So what would be comparable here would be Horizon programs, or so it's directly. Directly. Actually, the Commission can be supported by auditors. We hire.
When will audit occur in the life cycle?
Surprise! Anytime. That's the. Well, it doesn't mean that all projects will be audited. It's a sample.
Thank you.
and it can be during the project, can be at the end. That's the principle.
Yeah, maybe to complement this, the big difference, and you said it yourself, the big difference is that the European Defense Fund, it's managed directly by the European Commission. So unlike the regional funding, the cohesion funding, agricultural money, it's not given to the member states and they implement and they make the decisions who to fund, of course in cooperation with the countries. So this role of the member states here does not exist in a way. So we got audited because we manage the funding, and of course companies get audited. But this is very similar. Maybe you have heard about Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020. These are the big civilian research programs. It's very similar for all programs directly managed. But it is different from the regional funds, as you say, where the member states have the leading role.
Okay. So if there is maybe one last question if needed. If not, I propose that we stop here and we stay here for a few more minutes, available for further individual discussions. Thank you again for your attention.